You're now on board the Dynamic Discourse, a quality podcast from The Morning Fix for young people by young people who have a unique perspective on the world.
My name is Mariam Bishar.
Most bankable host Brian Aseli. Happy new month. We hope you're having a beautiful morning wherever you are. And of course, the playlist is amazing. In studio, because it's Tech Tuesday, we decided to make sure that you get to know how you can start a business. Or rather, what are the nitty-gritties of having a startup, okay?
Yep. We're hosting Adams Tuva, who is telling us about exactly the viability of startups. He's the founder of the Adams Group. And I'll just have him introduce himself first and what he does and what his background is. Karibu sana, Adams.
Thank you very much for having me. My name is Tuva Adams Tuva. I'm the founding director of the Adams Group companies. We're in ICT, real estate, and business training.
He runs about 11 companies.
11?
Yeah.
That's a big portfolio.
But just talk to us about yourself and how you got into businesses and then the nitty-gritties of getting into startups.
Thank you, Ryan. So, for starters, I was born and raised at the coast. Came to school in Nairobi, been all over the country for school. And then I started a business mostly in IT. That's what we focused on over time. It's built, and we got into real estate. And as we were growing, I think, okay, how else can we help people? And I took my experience and failures as an entrepreneur in IT, and we got into a program called the Business Empowerment Tools Program. And we started training young entrepreneurs on how to start business. And, that's basically what we normally do. So we're in three verticals. We do three columns: ICT, real estate, and training of young entrepreneurs.
Into the startup conversation now, we often hear Kenya being referred to as, Silicon Savannah, Silicon Savannah, Silicon Savannah. Why is that? And is it true or is it fact? Are we just the ones who want to think of ourselves as a Silicon Savannah?
Okay, there is some truth to that. Yeah, what the Silicon Savannah means is, okay, it's a word coined somewhere in the States. Yeah, back then, and it just meant the center of the ecosystem in tech. So if you look at it correctly, Kenya does play a very big role in terms of with some of the most resourced guys in Africa. We have some of the best talents. We have brands like Safaricom, and the employees of Safaricom are some of the best in the country. We have very big brands, and most of the IT guys in the world, when they come in the big brands, they mostly want to settle down in Nairobi. We have proper infrastructure, so we can't say we are the Silicon Valley of Africa.
We are.
I feel we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So of course, when you're starting a business, you're all excited and probably you've just received capital, or you just saved for your capital, and it makes you feel excited. And maybe you've received a grant and then you've started your business. But then this startup, how do you scale it up into a profitable business? Because starting it is like, I've set up. But then how do you make it profitable?
Okay. I'll first of all say it all starts with the idea, even before the funding. Funding is almost number 3, right? So the first thing you need to have is the idea. It's not the most important, but it's one of the ideas. You need to have the idea. What do I want? From there, you will then figure out, okay, how do I roll it out? Do you need a team? Do I need to start it independently? So those are some of the factors you need to look at. And then what people don't consider, and is one of the most important thing, is the timing. Right? So that you need to get the timing right. So a very brilliant idea 10 years ago is not the same idea now. Or it will not be the same idea 10 years ago. I realized that when people started the Airbnb business, no one ever thought they'll sit down and allow a stranger in their house in an extra bed in an extra room. But time has changed. People can now do security checks. The economy actually forces us to adopt into such kind of businesses. So timing is normal number one. Then other things come in, the funding, of course. But you do realize that unlike other parts of the world, we don't expose ourselves to such kind of that's not how we get money. For tech companies in Africa, most of the time is we work hard, we get money, and the clients tell us, okay, fine, you know what, we want this product to come like this, and we shift, and that's how we normally raise revenue. And if the clients don't buy into it, most of the business actually fold, and that's usually the end of such a brand.
So we know of biasharas and how they impact economies. So what would be the economic impact of startups in Kenya? And this is just my personal question, with the economic effects across the world, inflation and stuff like that, what would you say is the impact on startups?
Okay, so we'll start with the impact of startups on the economy. You do realize that the startups form the biggest base for most of the businesses. You realize that most of the people are, almost a very big percentage, if not 70-80%, are mostly startups or in the first 10 years of business. So most of the people, you realize, will not go beyond the 2-3 year mark. So we realize that the most people who do a lot of business. So in terms of even revenue collection, you realize that the guys who pay the most to employees, they're the people who pay the most taxes for their businesses. So that base does do quite a lot. Of course, now the other bigger boys who maybe you will do one-offs, but bigger amounts. But I believe strongly, like most of the revenue is collected by revenue collection in Kenya is done through the startups. Yeah,
that's exciting. But
bigger than
my other
corporates. Bigger than your well set up corporates, the big ones. The ones in telecoms and alcohol, things like that.
But those are actually quite few. It's like whatever they're trying to do right now with the taxes. Paying a certain 35% for guys above
500, 800 actually.
500. Yeah. Realize that most of the people earn less than 24,000. So the math should be invited. So I'd rather collect more from the 24 guys, even if it's a small amount, rather than the less than 1% who are earning $500,000. So it's the same kind of math.
Okay.
Yeah, same kind of math.
Yeah. So I was talking about the inflation. Of course, it's affected so many businesses. Are startups also affected by that?
Yeah, I think the hard economy, I wouldn't really call it inflation, but as in the tough economy right now has affected everyone. I feel not only startups, all businesses need to strap down, hang tough, be tough, and figure things out. So it's not affecting the young business, the big businesses, families, every single person. So as a startup or as young entrepreneurs, people need to figure out, okay, fine, where do I need to cut down? Maybe what do we need to, change? Do I need to maybe hire more interns to get the work done? So a few adjustments here and there, but at the end of the day, it's hitting everyone. That's the reality. So there's no way you can say, okay, fine, we're not paying the 5% if you're an influencer or whatever. So there's no way out. We must deal with it.
I hope these interns are paid interns. There's also, you mentioned like most startups don't make it past 2-3 years. So how do we prepare startups for the market so that they can, go beyond that? The 2-3 years that most don't make it past.
Okay. So the reality is not, all these businesses are started through an idea. These ideas are mostly through entrepreneurs, right? So the fact still remains that not everyone can become an entrepreneur. Let's just face it, right? So not everyone can start a business. Not everyone can sustain a business. Not everyone can come up with an idea which can be a business. So that's basically the first fact about whatever we're discussing. So once we have that reality, is that we are going to see some people fail because you see that is not what they were meant to they're not built for. Yeah. So once you understand that, then you need to realize, okay, fine, am I really developing a business which is going to help people? Because as long as it's a business which helps out people or has an impact on people, then you're able to sustain it. You cannot start a business which you cannot sell snow to people. Okay, some people tell us we can.
Yeah, can sell fire in hell.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
In Kenya, you can.
In Kenya, you can, yeah. But it must be a relevant item. Then is it a short-term product? Is it a long-term product? You realize if someone started the business of the face mask, it's now over. You're not able to do it in business. So when you're starting your business, you need to figure out, can it still be done in 10 years? Can you actually hand it over to the next generation? So before you even start this business, you need to figure out, okay, fine, it's a business here. What is the long-term strategy to it? Am I able to, is it still be viable in 5 years, 10 years? Am I able to give it to the next generation, or a director or a board of directors who can take the next level? So as long as that is covered, then you're like, okay, fine, this is a business which can then scale up.
The golden nuggets we're receiving right now is that that you need to study a lot before you get into the space.
Right.
You can't just get in.
Do your homework.
You can get in a rookie, yes, and become great. But of course, there's a lot of factors that come to play. Karibu sana, and this is a final link with you. But we'd like to just, of course, I know I've asked about the economic times and the effect, but how do you see it, especially for the young people who are getting into that space of becoming entrepreneurs and these tough economic times? Would you say it's an opportunity or a major threat to them, especially with the kind of financial flow that we've been having in Kenya, year 2022, 2023?
You know, they say bad news is the best friend to an investor, yeah? So let's just start there. And I feel there's not really a bad time or a good time to start it, to be an entrepreneur. There'll always be tough times. That's normal, as in expect tough times. People think it's all
easy.
Yeah, it's all, you know, a downhill. Entrepreneurship is very hard. Before people come and your employees, before you start paying salaries, whatever, it's a very tough, whatever. It's not easy, and that's the fallacy. People see people running around in Range Rovers and Benzes, and they feel it's very Chris Kirubi-ish, and it's not that. So as long as you understand that it's not really a fantasy lifestyle, right? It's business. As long as you have that, then you're able to do it very well. So how do we put it? Just the question again.
Do you see it as a threat or an opportunity, especially for the young businesses, young startups, sorry?
Okay. So it is an opportunity because as I say, if there's nothing tough, there's no opportunity to actually develop a product which is actually work. So as long as from the word go you're developing an item which will not face off. For example, we sell domains. We own by domain kenya.co.ke. At every single time we know there's someone who wants to buy a domain. There's a new business. Actually, we focus on the startups. So there's always a startup who will go in and you know, buy a domain from us. So we know for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years there'll always be someone renewing there. Right, as I told you, we are in real estate. So when we put up an apartment, we know the rental income is forever. We don't really have to think twice about that. So those are permanent structures, which, you know, we're not really going to think twice about. Yeah, when we do business training, it's just that, you know, I've gone through the tough time of starting a business. I know that, okay, fine, we might do a bit of IT, we can do a bit of real estate, but how do we again give back to society? So that feeling that, okay, fine, I don't have to let people go through whatever I went through, right, should also, to us as a business, is quite important.
So you see it as an opportunity?
It is an opportunity, yes. And as long as you pick the right product, the issue is, is the idea good enough, right?
And scalable, like you'd mentioned.
Exactly. Yeah. So will it be there 10 years ago? 10 years to come, yes. You know, the business we do, we're news, we are in online blogs, as in that's business forever. So before you even start doing this business, sit down with yourself. People do not form a very firm foundation in the business. They just want to, you know, go out there. We were discussing about this, take pictures and post them on social media. But before we do that, before we actually want to be on TV and on radio, you need to have a very firm foundation. And that's where people go wrong. The foundation is everything. Make sure your idea is viable, right? And form a very firm foundation before you start employing people, because there's no need of employing people and 2 months down the line you're firing them. They've left their business, they've left other employment opportunities to come work for you, and you cannot sustain them. So it's also unfair. So as a business person, especially as an entrepreneur and a startup, you're responsible for so many lives, and you need to be very careful about what you do, right? So the foundation is everything. Once that is set and you're comfortable about it, then you can move on.
Yeah. Final question. There's been, you know, a few cases of suspicion of people using startups, you know, to clean their dirty money, laundering money. How do we protect startups in the Kenyan ecosystem from being used as a channel, especially, you know, for dirty cash, especially because who doesn't want funding? You know, it's very hard to start down money.
Yeah. So and that's where sometimes morals come in. That's where moral come in, and I would say it's greed. There's one who doesn't want money, but you basically know this thing is going to bite me in the behind at some point. Why are you doing it? right? So for startups, I tell them, even before you go out there and ask for money, right, make sure that you understand your business, you know what the business is doing, even before you leave alone the big fundraising people do the IPOs, even going to the bank and asking for a loan, you need to understand, okay, am I really doing this for the right reason, or just I want to get a new mattress or a new car, right? So you need to have the right reason. So that's where morality and, you know, being cautious of what you're doing
comes in. Yeah. Thank you so much, Adams. I think we've had an incredibly insightful hour with you, getting into startups and their viability in Kenya especially. Thank you so much for your insights. Tunakuanga na makofi hapa kama walawide. A big thank you again. How do we connect with you on social media and with the Adams Group?
I'm mostly I'm on IG.
Yeah.
So if you go to IG, Tuva Adams Tuva, you can send me a message and then we can pick it up from there.
All right.
I'm also on Facebook, on Twitter, on the same.
Okay, LinkedIn as well.
And LinkedIn as
Kila mahali. All right, thank you so much. It's been an amazing hour with you.
The vibe has been lit.
Thank you.
And we trust you loved it. Don't forget to subscribe
Follow us.
and stay up to date.